I had many conversations with contributors and hosts about the inappropriate behavior of the men at Fox. We would compare strategies for managing the men. That's how bad it was.
Last weekend, I spoke with Caroline Heldman, a former Fox News contributor who accused host Eric Bolling of sexual harassment just hours after he was suspended from the network. His suspension was spurred by a bombshell report by Yashar Ali in the Huffington Post, which alleged that Bolling sent lewd, unsolicited text messages to at least 3 female colleagues. Ali based his reporting on 14 unnamed sources within and outside of Fox News. Now, NBC News has not independently verified the claims. But now Bolling is suing the reporter for defamation, seeking at least $50 million in damages. In a statement, Bolling's attorney, Michael Bowe, said this anonymously sourced and uncorroborated story is false, defamatory, and obviously intended to destroy this good man's career and family. We will defend Eric aggressively in court, where actual facts based on evidence, testimony, and cross-examination, we will belie these anonymous accusations. And Ali's attorney fired back on Friday night, saying that it is false that Mr. Ali published defamatory statements. There's no evidence of actual malice. And joining me now is Caroline Heldman, a former Fox contributor who accused Bolling of sexual harassment on the show last week. Lisa Bloom, civil rights attorney for the Bloom firm. And on the phone is Yashar Ali, author of the Huffington Post and Huffington Post report on Bolling and the target of this defamation suit. Yashar, I want to start with you. You tweeted, "It's important to note that Bolling's summings does not include the Huffington Post. He's coming after me personally. I'm a big boy, but very telling." Were you surprised that when you were, when this lawsuit was filed, that it didn't include the Huffington Post?
I'm not surprised because this is a suit without merit. He's doing this to try to intimidate me. And of course, he's not going to include HuffPost, which is owned by Verizon, a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate with a fleet of lawyers, because he knows that he would be demolished by them. And he's certainly not, I'm not going to bow down to him. He's going to have to deal with my lawyer. He's trying to do this to intimidate, an intent to intimidate a young reporter.
Yeah, and the Huffington Post has stood by you, Yashar. Lydia Paul-Green, who is the editor-in-chief, she sent out a tweet of her own in which she said Yashar Ali is a paid freelancer under contract with HuffPost. We have no hesitation about standing by him financially in this case. So you feel that you're being fully supported, I assume, by the company?
I am. Just to be clear, I have not accepted their offer of financial help with respect to the lawsuit. And one of the reasons is because he is coming after me directly. But they have made a very serious offer. They've been kind enough to do that. They didn't technically have to do that, and kudos to Lydia for standing by me and other reporters that are facing these sort of meritless lawsuits that are put out in an attempt to shut people like me up. It's not going to work.
Yeah, and Lisa Bloom, who is a blockbuster attorney in your own right, I want to get your take on Yashar's lawyers' pretty fulsome comebacks. She had a pretty fiery letter in response that included the fact we welcome the opportunity to depose Mr. Bolling and review his message history. Is the risk here in this lawsuit a good little thing called discovery?
Absolutely. And Mr. Ali, I think you should take the Huffington Post's offer of financial help for your attorneys, because I've been litigating a defamation case for 2 years here in California against Bill Cosby. These cases can be long, knock down, drag out, a lot of motion practice. And I think it would be helpful. Let your organization stand behind you. And of course, yes, you're going to get discovery. I would suggest that the attorneys immediately send out document preservation letters, which means simply he can't destroy any electronic communications. He's got to hold on to his phone, all of his devices, all of his emails, all of his texts, and we know why, to see if we can preserve some evidence here. It is appalling, Joy, that here we have a journalist going after another journalist for a story allegedly with 14 sources. Come on, he'll never be able to prove actual malice.
Yeah, and Caroline, I mean, you're somebody who could theoretically be a witness here. I mean, does the fact, in your view, that Eric Bolling's attorney is saying that these are all fabrications, that it's all made up, given your own personal experiences, what do you make of that?
Well, I think it's fascinating that much of what he did to me, he did on air. So there are actually videos of him sexually harassing me on the air, calling me Dr. McHattie, making comments about me being beautiful, smart, and dead wrong. You know, I didn't go to college for 12 years to have my professional title have McHattie after it. So he hasn't replied to my allegations. He has, of course, gone after the story about the pictures, but I think it's telling. He did it on air. Fox executives stood by while this happened. So I'm not sure he has a leg to stand on, especially given that there are other women who are afraid to come forward, but who could. So I don't think that Eric Bolling wants to pursue a legal path with me, and I think it's a frivolous lawsuit against Yashar, and I think it reeks of desperation.
And Yashar, you know, in facing this lawsuit, obviously your 14 sources are going to come into play. Are you confident that the people that you spoke with are going to be willing to testify on your behalf?
I know some of them will, but I will not be revealing my sources. I made a pledge to them to protect them no matter what. If I end up I'm not trying to be dramatic, but if I end up in jail because of that, that's fine. I made a commitment and I have to keep it.
And do you have in your possession copies of these text messages?
I can't talk about that.
Can't talk about that. All right. And Lisa, you know, in order to prove defamation, what is it that Eric Bolling would have to actually prove?
Well, he's a public figure, and that means a simple negligent mistake would not be sufficient. He would have to show that Mr. Ali intentionally lied about him, or at least published an article with reckless disregard as to the truth or falsity of that article. That's a very, very high standard. And by the way, notice that what was filed in New York was a simple summons with notice. This is like the simplest legal document that a first-year law student could draft and put out there. And then you slap a big number at the end. I want $50 million. You know, I never put that in any of my complaints. I never put a dollar figure because that's just a headline-grabbing way to get attention, but it doesn't really mean anything. The man has not even been fired. He still has a job. He's just been suspended. How on earth could you prove $50 million in damages? You simply can't do it.
But do you think that this is simply a lawsuit meant to, I don't know, make the appearance of umbrage so that he can sort of present himself as an innocent man and that he's not serious about the lawsuit?
Well, I think this is a way he's trying to save his job. And, you know, I've had a number of sexual harassment cases against Fox News, so I have some understanding on how things work over there. He's been suspended. He wants to keep his job. I think he wants to say to the Paul Weiss attorneys who represent Fox News, you can't fire me until my lawsuit is resolved. And, of course, defamation lawsuits can take 5 years or more. He wants to say, I have an outstanding claim. Let me prove my claim. Let me keep my job.
Yeah, and you know, Caroline, Bolling is getting some support, including from Pat Robertson, representing the Christian right. Here, this is what he had to say about the accusations. This was on Monday.
If you wanted to destroy the Fox News, if you really wanted to destroy them, what would you do? Well, you would send some salacious material, ostensibly from one of their popular co-hosts or hosts. The latest attack is against a guy named Eric Bolling, who I think is a straight hour. He was on this program. He's a dedicated Catholic, goes to Mass every day. Very nice man. They've pulled him off the air because somebody sent some pictures ostensibly over his name.
Caroline, this is the false flag accusation rearing its ugly head again. Can you imagine anyone that you worked with at Fox, any of the women that you knew or anybody that you worked with at Fox, somehow faking text messages from Eric Bolling in order to frame him for sending such lewd material?
Absolutely not. I think that Eric Bolling was not particularly cautious about his actions. I would say that compared to some of the other men at Fox who also engaged in similar behavior, he was sloppier. With that in mind, it goes beyond the genitalia pictures, right? I have made allegations, some of which are provable simply by looking at YouTube videos, others provable by looking at journals and accounts of eyewitness accounts and things that I told people immediately after it happened. It's not just me. It's multiple women. It's been multiple women at Fox against multiple executives and hosts. It was a culture. And frankly, you know, I grew up Pentecostal evangelical. I'm not that anymore. But Pat Robertson should be ashamed of himself that he is advocating for something that the church would absolutely not advocate for. This behavior is in no way godly.
And Yashar, the last one to you. The New York Times reports that the attorney that's representing Eric Bolling. Michael J. Bowe is from the law firm of Kasowitz, Benson, Torres. You may know that name, Kasowitz, one of the partners. He's a longtime personal lawyer for Donald Trump. He's also represented Bill O'Reilly, who was ousted in April over sexual harassment allegations. Do you feel like this is Fox World simply trying to shut down a line of inquiry by journalists into the culture as regards sexual harassment at that establishment?
I don't think it's Fox World as much. They really haven't offered him much support. They didn't give much of a statement when I called last Friday, and they also suspended him almost immediately. This is about the Kasowitz firm is used by a lot of folks at Fox. And so, word gets around and you start using the same lawyers. But it's important to note that my lawyer is Rush Limbaugh's lawyer, and she's appeared on Sean Hannity, and she's a Republican. So, I'm matching him here in terms of someone who can't be accused of being some, Democratic shill. And I certainly wouldn't want to deal with Patty Glaser.
All right. Well, somebody will be soon. Caroline Heldman, Lisa Bloom, Yashar Ali, thank you very much. We appreciate you guys being here. Thank you. And I want to let the viewers know we did reach out to Eric Bolling's attorney about this story and the accusation that Caroline Heldman has made. We have not yet gotten a response. We'll keep you updated if we do. Coming up, what if yesterday's white supremacist rally had instead been a Muslim rally? Think about that during the break.